Welcome back to the Attachment Point News Roundtable. I got Bobby Touran, formerly, with Path Point. But we'll definitely, I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point. But excited to have you on to talk about Rainbow today, man. It's been cool seeing you back at it. When I looked at LinkedIn, I think this is like the 14th thing you founded. So you're back in the mix.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, just joking. But yeah, Path Point, I saw some other really cool things in the past. Being a bartender, restaurant manager at times, server, busboy, host even. I got stuck hosting for a month, which is actually incredibly stressful. Hosting's not fun. Um, I was excited to see you getting into restaurants, man. It's a brave space. Yeah.
Yeah, we're other than the number of different things that I've worked on, I've also been in the food and beverage
Cool.
industry myself, and one of my co-founders has as well. And so, yeah, and I mean, on top of that, I certainly spend most of the money I make eating out, and I love going to restaurants. It's always been one of my favorite parts of being in a new city or a new place is exploring the food. So it's kind of a labor of love.
I got my first sales job because I'd worked in restaurants. It was a copier sales job. It was 2009, incredibly high base pay. So I'm sure they would have given the job to anybody, but he said he liked servers because they, had to deal with the general population, could deal with stress, good with all types of people. But yeah, they've been great, Yeah, when I lost that job 5 years ago, I just doubled down on bartending and started my own brokerage. It's such a collision of, personalities, energy, culture, you know, yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, I think, similar to insurance, hospitality and food and
Hmm.
beverage, so people oriented, right? It's like a lot of humans doing things, and there's like human interaction and emotion and, involved in every part of it. And so I think it's important to embrace that. Certainly, I feel like the people who are successful do really embrace that rather than shy away from it. So I think you probably got some good cross training for your brokerage work.
I was joking with Bobby before he hit record that if I went into a restaurant and they had non-slip shoes, I would insure them, and if they didn't, I wouldn't. Because like, if you make people buy those ugly, annoying shoes that nobody wants to buy or wear, I was like, I have a feeling you're running a tight ship. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
For sure.
that's fun. So yeah, so unique packages, restaurants, hospitality. The other funny thing is we're insurance agents. I'm not saying we're boring. I never want to say we're boring. Um, but desk shop people, office people, we're different. The other cool thing I think about taking care of restaurants is, there's just a vitality to it, and it's interesting, they kind of mix it up. I saw that you're working with agents on this one too. It's not, D2C or anything. What
Right.
kind of drew you back to the agent path as opposed to trying to market directly on Instagram or something?
Well, I think from my last company where we worked exclusively through agents, I just got to see firsthand the value in sort of partnering with that community and the benefit that comes from
Hmm.
working closely with the community and listening to them and building tools that make their lives easier. So,
Hmm.
from day one, we say this internally all the time, agents really do matter. And especially for small commercial, which is sort of the segment of P&C insurance that
Hmm.
we're going to be focused on with Rainbow. We just knew from day one that agents were kind of a non-negotiable part of the equation. So I also haven't seen too many success stories with companies that are trying to go direct to the insured in small commercial. If you're a newer company, I think it's just both really expensive and it's difficult. And so again, startups, I often joke that startups are hard enough. I think one of the things that you should always be trying to do is not making it impossible. And I feel like what's already going to be tricky would be made very tricky if we tried to go direct. So it's not something we're interested in.
Yeah, I think you're right. They say you want to limit the number of miracles that have to happen to be
Exactly.
successful.
Yeah,
You know,
that's exactly right.
so not, create a whole new distribution plan. I'm
Yeah.
biased, but yeah, 10, 12, 15% for sales and customer service. Yeah, I mean, you're paying that one way or another. And then hopefully we do our job and do some like field underwriting and write accounts we plan on having for a long time and not just shove stuff through a funnel because if we click really fast over here, somebody will give us a policy. That I think agents owe paper and capacity, some respect too. I know we can be kind of pirates sometimes. Yeah.
Well, all the folks on our team who came from the insurance industry, so the
Hmm.
mix of like insurance industry teammates and more tech industry teammates. And the insurance folks all came from companies where agency distribution was the core model.
Cool.
So there's like a ton of internal empathy that we have around that user type.
Yeah, it's different. I love salespeople. I mean, I've grown up around them, grown up around founders too. Been friends with a lot of them the past couple of years. Um, going back to the restaurants being kind of wild people, all of them kind of have a little bit of that extra stoke, to kind of get it done. Is there anything, what I would say coverage wise? I don't want to ask you to like spill the beans or any secret sauce, but is there anything you guys are doing that you feel is a little bit unique that you're really proud of that, is special to the hospitality space and what you built out?
Yeah, so would it be helpful if I just, for a couple minutes, give an overview of the business and kind of what we're
Yeah,
focused on, and then I can hit on some of those points too?
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the company's called Rainbow. We've been operating in stealth mode, under the radar, whatever you'd call it, for like the last almost 18 months. We
Mhm.
formed the company in January of last year.
Nice.
We've been developing the Rainbow brand in parallel with a partnership that we have with a branding agency named Red Antler. So if you go to
Mm,
userainbow.com, you'll see sort of everything about the brand, and all of that branding and look and feel was designed by the Red Antler team, and we worked closely with them, and they were awesome. And we wanted it to be called Rainbow because we wanted it to be positive, we wanted it to be memorable, and we knew we wanted to focus on small commercial.
mm,
And the other thing we wanted to do was think about small commercial in terms of specializations rather than a more general approach.
mm,
So rather than having a BOP or a package that could write hundreds of different codes of
mhm,
business, like NAICS codes, we really wanted to hone in. And as we looked at some of the big categories like contractors, retail, hospitality, medical, hospitality was the one that kind of, like I was saying, I just had a lot of personal interest in. We also felt like in the last couple of years, restaurants in particular have really evolved quite a bit because of COVID
mm,
in terms of both their operations, everything from having a lot more delivery, higher alcohol sales as a percentage of their total bottom line, but also to using like more software. We all
yeah.
eat out, we all eat 3 times a day at least. And most of us who live in big cities eat out, often at least once a day. And despite being such a huge part of everyday life, a lot of restaurants are still kind of just getting there in terms of using software because like you said, they just use elbow grease and like an endless amount of enthusiasm and passion for what they're doing to basically just like put the business on their back rather than think about how to like optimize it, right? And so as we thought about that, we were like, okay, within restaurants, we wanted to go after a coverage that's going to be necessary for all of them.
Yeah.
BOP was a good starting point for us. So our first product is a BOP for the restaurant industry. We can rate basically any food or beverage establishment that's not a pure bar or a tavern. So we can write up to 65% alcohol sales as a
Nice.
percentage of the business's bottom line, or top line, I should say. But everything, casual dining, fine dining, small little mom and pop locations, even fast food type locations are all very much with an appetite for us. You can quote bind and issue coverage all through the platform. It's an admitted policy. We felt like that was going to be really important.
Mm, yeah.
I mentioned my last company was on the non-admitted side of things, but I was sort of curious. Maybe both grass is always greener, but also just sort of wanted to address the other really large part of the market with an admitted product. Um, and so yes, we developed this product, and then thinking about those changes in the market and some of the things that differentiate us. So one of the things is that knowing that we want to your point about slip and fall
Yeah.
shoes, we want to promote uh, good operators. So basically, we want to give credits, premium credits, to the businesses that use our training content that
Hmm.
we make available to them for
Cool.
like food sanitation and just like sort of decorum within the workplace, that type of things. I mean, not surprisingly, we're trying to address where a lot of claims could come from down the road at the
Smart.
root. but we give those tools away to the businesses for free. And we give them other resources that they can use, like a nightly checklist. I mean, some of this stuff is pretty fundamental. Like, I don't think we're
You
doing
would
anything
think,
transformational, but we're
yeah,
putting it all in one place, and we incentivize the business owner with that. And then we sort of call that digital loss control. We started calling it rainbow rewards. We call it a number of things. I'm sure it's going to keep evolving. We also offer a payment plan, which is pretty unique. We offer a pay-as-you-go BOP
nice.
product. So very similar to how pay-as-you-go workers' comp, you buy a work comp policy, you give the carrier access to your payroll data, and then they fluctuate your work comp premiums up or down based on your
Hmm.
change in payroll. We do the same thing with your BOP. So we reprice the GL component of your BOP based on your monthly sales. So if you have seasonality to your business, we think you should pay
That's
less
cool. That's
in
interesting.
those months.
Yeah.
And if you have a really busy month, we want to make sure that you're, getting the exact level of coverage you need. Basically, what we're trying to remove there is any surprises for both the business owner who realizes that when they have a claim, the coverage that they had was for a business that in the eyes of the insurance company is a slightly different business. We don't want that to happen because that's not fun. And similarly, because we're now on the underwriting side as an MGU and we write on fronted capacity,
Nice.
we don't want our capacity providers to be surprised either. So if you buy this pay-as-you-go policy from us, it's an annual term policy, but there's sort of this flexibility of the pricing. You give us access to your POS data, you do that one time, and then you never have to think about it again. We make all the adjustments. All the policies we sell are annual, though. You can either pay up front for a standard 1 year policy, or you can pay it in monthly installments, or you can do this pay as you go option. So those are some of the ways that we're
Yeah, that's cool.
differentiating, and we're trying to keep the best interests of the insured in mind. And we think that if we do that, hopefully, the best interest of the agent can be kept in mind as well.
I haven't sold into the restaurant, surprisingly. We were joking that if you know the risk too well, sometimes you're scared of it too. Um, that training you're talking about, I've worked in very corporate restaurants and they're incredible flashlight, end of the night, jiggering everything, making your drinks, whatever else. I've worked in family owned where it's a little bit like willy-nilly. And there's kind of a magic to that too, but what I think you're bringing is that sort of corporate expertise and lens to kind of non-corporate environments, best practices. I think that's super helpful. Um, so this is a public podcast, public YouTube, so I'm just gonna like dance around names. It's interesting seeing what I'll call a flower technology out there, like a little green flower, if you know what I'm talking about. And then another food item that's coming out that's giving out a bunch of tablets and their systems are getting better and they're trying to like pump insurance in through those platforms too. I don't think that meets the need as well or as directly. I think, like you're saying, a bespoke product delivered by an agent who knows how to service an account, level up. I still think like the long-term wins work. I'm biased.
I think you know better than I do because you're an agent and you're close to this stuff. Obviously,
Yeah.
living in California, especially too. But I think you hit the nail on the head. We want to make the resources available so that if somebody wants to use it, they can. And if they use it, we will see them.
Hmm.
To say, like, we will give you some benefit for giving us like what we're kind of looking for, which is that opportunity to learn more about you and about your business. Um, we've built a quote bind issue experience, which, I mean, if I have to say, I think is pretty darn good.
That's cool.
And it's been great to watch that get developed. But that's really just the placement component of it.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, we have underwriters that are experienced within insurtech, that are experienced within small commercial
Hmm.
in more traditional environments, and they're very much, it's like this humanizing of the tech solution
Yeah.
for agents and insureds. So anytime an agent or insured has a question, well, certainly anytime an agent has a question, they can just pick up the phone and talk to one of
Cool.
us. And if the insured has any types of interactions, the agent is notified of all of them. But where there are opportunities for us to save the agent from having to get involved, because we realize that agents are running a business too, and they don't want to necessarily have to drop what they're doing every time somebody wants like a copy of their policy or like payment records or something. We try to make that all available to the insureds through their integration.
Yeah. That seems like the best practices these days, the service centers that are really flexible, very capable. being able to help kind of, like you said, take the lift off just a little bit.
Yeah,
So no, I think it's all super interesting. Automotive kind of IoT, it reminds me of some companies that are sort of rating on how you're driving commercially,
sure.
providing different tools. It is fun, you're a startup guy. There's a hype cycle to things like IoT and then APIs and then AI. And it's funny because the first pass doesn't usually seem to work and there's a lot of money, whatever else. I feel like IoT might actually show up the way we thought it might have 7 years ago. I feel like it was IoT, then it was like APIs and blockchain, then it was like embedded. Now it's like machine learning. Yeah. But yeah, I think IoT actually is going to kind of start showing up.
We thought a
Yeah.
lot about that, like
Yeah.
so I looked at pay-as-you-go work comp.
Yeah.
I looked at telematics
Yep.
and personal auto as two really good, like real-time sources of data on the risks that were being underwritten. Because we were hearing from a lot of capacity providers, with lots of small commercial and especially with restaurants, we're self-conscious about like what we're actually on risk for.
Yeah.
Um, Common questions are like, how late are you open? Do you offer happy hour? Are you open on the weekends? Is there a doorman? All these types of questions, which are basically trying to learn more about the business in indirect ways.
Hmm.
So we thought about like, okay, if we wanted to monitor whether or not businesses actually close down at 9
Oh,
p.m.
interesting. Yeah.
or stay open later, what if there was like a sound device that they would put and it would like track decibels of sound after certain hours or something? Or yeah, like the accelerometer of a smartphone, for example. I think the problem is the bridge between there's two bridges, and like you said, it's like you want to minimize miracles,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the first miracle is getting the business owner who's super busy trying to run their business
Yeah.
to think about like, okay, I have to put this thing here and it has to be like this angle, and
Well,
if it's whatever, it's not going to work. And then the
yeah.
second is actually getting that data and using it in a meaningful way.
And to kind of nerd out, and again, this is unscripted. People obviously know at this point, and none of this is really planned. Um, I guess IoT for cars and telematics changed once you introduced a cell phone and there's an accelerometer and there was something in the car. When you're talking about people in the restaurant or not, I was thinking about that busy thing. When I'm bartending, I'll check, be like, how crazy is the restaurant right now? And Google will tell me, be like, oh, there's more people there than usual. There's less people there than usual.
Right,
So I
right.
was even thinking there probably a way, even with cell phones. I think the legality would be there, but to have some sort of like network monitoring, and you could almost have like a little hotspot that's like, okay, there's these employees are here and these are outside, these are non-employees. If you
Right.
had some sort of like pay app or something related to your system that kind of syncs in with the insurance, you could kind of, it's so funny, but there's 40
Well,
cell
well,
phones in
there's
the
tons of
building.
stuff like that. See,
Yeah.
like even just like reviews of restaurants are
Yeah.
super useful.
Yeah.
Aren't a ton of, I actually can't really think of any underwriting companies that would use review data at the time of quoting. They
Mm.
might look at it after a bind. They
Yep.
might look at it as part of like investigating a claim.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of times, a restaurant where it's being submitted as casual dining, there are reviews at that same moment on the internet that are like, I love going here for happy hour all the time with all my friends. They charge nothing for drinks. They make the drinks super strong. Those are the types of
That's
things that
funny.
could it doesn't mean you shouldn't write the
No,
business
but you
necessarily.
could have a little scraper for little like alarm bells, like, oh, there's a few things on this account that seem weird, you know?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
even if it's not like I say, even if it's not a reason to hard decline, it could at least tee up within our own database in our portfolio,
Yeah.
like keep an eye on this one because
Oh
certain
yeah.
things that we heard are maybe a little out of line from what the answers are.
Well, I think that would be a really interesting value add offer. We're going to give away a bunch of ideas today. People watch this, they're going to get all sorts of ideas. Um, you know, the managers, whatever else, they'll reward people for good Yelp reviews. They see a terrible one, they'll try to fix it. If you like had proactive social media monitoring, I think that would be cool. And I got another idea for you right now. If you see that they have a professional person helping manage their social media or their Instagram or something, if they're willing to hire outside marketing, kind of along the same lines as the shoe idea, like they're probably doing pretty good, making money, well ran, putting money back in the business. If you can't even pull up socials on them, like probably a little dodgy.
Well,
Yeah.
so that's what's interesting about a lot of these things that you're pointing out is that and again, like I'm still learning a lot about
Hmm.
like how restaurants have been written for many, many years. Obviously, they've been around for a long time. Most companies, underwriting companies, would just hard decline things
Yeah.
based on certain characteristics, right? So it's like uh I like lost my train of thought, but the example you were giving in terms of like social, um, it would be like, oh, if they don't have it, like let's not underwrite it. But what you could try to do is say, like, well, okay, if they have this other thing, like for us, for example, there's tons of information on the front of the house experience because
Mm.
people are out there with their
Oh,
phones.
good point. Yeah.
But a lot of where claims might also happen are in the back of the house, like relating to fires. So it's like, how are you using data around the last time the inspection was done for fire safety? Or if you had a photo of like the serial number and the most recent record of like the fire department visiting the space,
Mm.
like, does that give you a little bit more comfort? Could you then feel more comfortable writing that risk? And there's like a yes and no element to a lot of these things, but I guess it's like part of what we're trying to do is shake things a little so that we can find those in between cases that could actually be a really good write, and just sort of methodically build the book that way.
I got another random one for you. Dry goods storage and the fridge, but mainly dry goods storage, how they're storing stuff in the back of the house, if it looks organized and tight, you're probably doing pretty good. If it's a bunch of crap
That's
piled
one
on
of
it.
our. So funny you should say that. So I'm just thinking of one of my teammates who is going to get a real kick out of the fact you said that.
Yeah.
Like he worked in a restaurant and he has all these examples of, because one of the big claims that a restaurant can have is that their walk-in cooler goes down.
Ooh,
And like,
yep. Yep.
we're in Arizona as our first state, and we're open for business. Any agents that are interested in Arizona and working with us, please reach out to us. We'd love to show you the product. We're moving into Texas next, and these are states that get super hot in the
Yeah.
summer. And if the cooler goes and you lose all this inventory, it's like a big loss for you, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you look at why the cooler will break, it can often be because the staff is like storing their backpacks up on top of it where
Eh,
or they're keeping like big boxes that might have something moist on
yeah.
top of the cooler, and then it drips down and it short circuits the thing, it dies, you lose all this perishable inventory. And it's little things, it's not a little thing, but it's things like that
Yeah.
that can result in the business having claims that could have been avoided. You can't, and again, I just want to be clear, like, I'm not at all saying that tech, magically solves all these things. But the idea is that if you're committed to like looking a lot more closely, you're probably going to find things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
Oh yeah. No, I think you have real-time sensors. I think you can do other things. You know what else would be interesting? Would be like a marketplace of products that you think are safer or better, like fridges that shut themselves or commercial ovens that you think have a better safety rating, but you could almost even come up with supplies that you think are less likely. Like I've worked in restaurants, had terrible like cut gloves. They're always missing pieces of plastic. And it's like you're using this thing, we're gonna slice your finger. And then I've worked in ones that have like little chainmail gloves and you're not gonna lose a finger. Um,
No, but
so
I don't know how you like. I need to talk to the team because I don't know if they've posted some of this stuff online and you
it's
found it.
funny.
But like, we've literally talked about branded. I'm not kidding you.
Cut
Branded
gloves.
slip and fall mats, or
Yeah.
branded mats, or branded cut gloves,
Yep.
or all of these things, right? Like
Yeah.
the question for these things really comes down to, and from what we understand, like basically zero insurance companies give the businesses these types of tools.
Yeah.
Not like fancy online things, but it's just like the basics that they need to run their business. The difficulty comes down in sort of like the cost and the logistics of getting this stuff out to them.
Just
Um,
shoes for cruise gift cards, man. Just give people
and
shoes
then
for cruise gift cards. They'll be happy.
exactly, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good
That-
idea. But
That's
yeah, this
funny.
is exactly what we're talking about. And see, the
Yeah.
thing is, if you try to do this exercise for many, many, many different disparate lines of business. So as I was looking at small commercial in the US, it's a huge market. Like there's a lot of different sources, but like let's just say 150 billion a year in premium, very fragmented. The largest player only has about 9-10%
Oh
market share.
wow.
Very, very fragmented. And part of why it's so fragmented is because small businesses, unlike auto and unlike home, are just like far more heterogeneous, right?
Hmm.
So the risks of a restaurant are very different from the risks of retail or contractors or medical. And if you try to do all those things, like to have this level of
Yeah.
thinking, and then build any type of this capability into your software, very quickly you run out of time. And as a startup, you kind of don't have unlimited shots.
Yeah.
You really have to think, like, what do I feel most confident in betting on here? And we felt like there was a lot of excitement internally around restaurants, and it's a class that not everyone's running towards from an underwriting perspective.
Yeah.
I felt like that created a perfect storm for us.
I think so too. I think the little nuance, and we're probably coming closer to time. I wanted to get into kind of more of an interesting like global topic, I'll say. We before we hit record, we talked about building startups now versus 2 years ago when there was like kind of funny money floating around. Um, I don't think it's impossible. We were saying you bunker A, just maybe don't spin up the same way or as fast. Like you're saying too, like it's not like, oh, it's a hard time, so we'll be successful. Great companies built during hard times. But I do think right now it's like positioning and like intentional growth, and then to be ready to run off to the races when the market is a little bit more friendly. That's what it seems
Yeah.
like.
I think for startups that are fortunate to make it through what we're all going through, hopefully it's like
Uh-huh.
go down through the bottom and then you're able to rise with the market. If you assume that like the market, now some people might say that they think the market's going to get a lot worse. I'm not smart enough to have an opinion on that, but like I feel like no matter what, it will probably get relatively better at some point. So the question is like, can you last until then?
hmm
Because if you can, then you'll be able to get the benefit of just sort of everything improving.
Yeah, it's sort of staying at the table. I don't know why I fall back to like poker analogy so often, but right now it's important just to like protect your chip stack and not bet too big, but also like, the blinds are gonna be around, there's gonna be some money to stay in the game. But yeah, I'm
Right.
not too fearful and I'm excited for the flip side. And I'm weird where like when everyone's excited and everyone's up, I'm like, guys, this is a little bit weird. Something's going on. And then when everyone's down and beat up, I'm like, we're gonna be fine. Let's
Yeah.
just hang in there. Yeah. Not trying
Yeah.
to be Buffett or Munger too much, but so I guess maybe kind of last thing, I'll let you go. I'm really excited about Rainbow. You founded a couple companies. You've been at the table a few times, like a few parting words for people sort of entering the game or thinking about doing their own thing or building, a startup. What got you into the game? What keeps you showing up to the game? Yeah, I guess would be my question.
Yeah. What keeps me going is that I just personally really enjoy it, and I think that's maybe obvious, but I think that that's important
Yeah,
because it's really hard. There's a lot of ambiguity. I think even though I've been a founder several times, it honestly every single time there are major pieces of it that feel like it's the first time I'm doing
cool.
it, and I get a lot of excitement and sort of internal motivation from that. Uh, and I think the other thing is just like don't be afraid. And I guess what I mean by that is like what you're doing is already risky and it's already hard, kind of like what I was saying. If you're gonna do it, like go all the way. Like don't second guess yourself.
Yeah,
Remember all the cliches that most of the things that you see around you were developed by people who weren't necessarily smarter than you. They just did it.
yeah,
And nothing's ever good at first. It only becomes good over time. I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned is that there was always this fallacy in my mind that the best entrepreneurs just had the best idea when they started.
yeah.
And that's just not true. Like the best ideas have gotten good over time.
hmm
And the best entrepreneurs, generally speaking, have just been the ones that have persisted and that just kind of keep getting up when they get knocked down. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do. And I know you can do it. So
There we go, man. I like it. Um, we'll have some notes in there. I'll have some contact for you, LinkedIn, the company, but anything else some people should keep an eye out for? Or
no, please, if you're in Arizona, please reach out to us. Check out the website, userainbow.com. And a member of our team would be happy to talk you through appetite in other states. And we'd love to show you what we can do.
get your free branded cut gloves. Reach out to Bobby today.
Reach
So
out to me directly.
appreciate it, bud. Thanks for coming on again. It's a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Brad.
Always.